So what is up, guys? Brendan Suter back, and we are finally here. 18 weeks of prediction videos. Those don't mean anything anymore because we are on postseason predictions. This is what matters. I got to get all these perfect because even if I get one wrong, that could completely skew the results. But anyways, I can't believe we made it here. Got 13 matches to get to, so I'm going to give you each team that's in the playoffs. Starting off the AFC, you have going from first to last seed, the Tennessee Titans, Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals, Las Vegas Raiders, New England Patriots, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then on the NFC side, we have the Green Bay Packers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Dallas Cowboys, LA Rams, Arizona Cardinals, San Francisco 49ers, and finally, last but not least, the Philadelphia Eagles. 13 matches to get to, so without further ado, let's get this video started. All right, so we're going into Super Wildcard Weekend. Now, I am going to be going in order of when these matches are going to be played. So we got the very first match between the 5-seeded Las Vegas Raiders and the 4-seeded Cincinnati Bengals. Starting off with the Raiders. This year was kind of weird for you, you know. You had the whole controversy with John Gruden, then, of course, Henry Ruggs. Like, this team has just been through so much, yet still somehow squeaked into the playoffs with a clutch victory over the LA Chargers, even though I was really hoping for a tie so they could both make it in. But, you know, Rich Bisaccia, maybe he could be around next year. Maybe he won't just be the interim head coach, but who knows? Anyways, a couple of highlights. I definitely got to say that offense is pretty strong. You know, Derek Carr had an excellent season, threw for 4,840 yards, 23 touchdowns to 14 picks. Followed up with Josh Jacobs, your lead rusher, with 872 yards. Lead receiver was Hunter Renfrow with 1,000 yards, so he was extremely impressive this season, especially in fantasy. And, you know, you also have some other good receiving threats like Darren Waller, Bryan Edwards, Zay Jones, Foster Moreau. Definitely, I would say a big concern for me going into the playoffs is the defense. Sure, you got some decent guys like Jonathan Abram, Corey Littleton, Max Crosby, but other than that, one thing I did notice is that your turnover differential was a -9, and you're not forcing turnovers, so that is going to be a massive problem on that defense. And then we get to the Bengals, probably one of the biggest shocks of the season. I definitely thought you guys would be kind of either middle of the road or really bad, but I did not think you'd break out like you did. Joe Burrow just had an excellent season, 4,611 yards, 34 touchdowns to 14 picks, strong rush game with Joe Mixon and Sanjay Perine, but maybe the best aspect of this team has to be that receiving core. It is arguably the best receiving core in the league. I think it's the best young receiving core, at least, with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. You also got C.J. Uzama, and yeah, that's pretty much it. But an excellent, really, I do love the offense here. I am definitely a little bit concerned about your defense. Sure, you got some big guys like Von Bell, Jesse Bates, Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson was a huge shock to me this year. You know, this year we would find out, was he really good? Did he really break out in New Orleans, or was he just benefiting off being on the other side of Cam Jordan? Turns out he's really freaking good. But other than that, you know, you guys are good against the rush, but you guys are not exactly the best against the pass. And currently, you have the longest playoff win drought. I think the last time you won a playoff game was 1991. Do the Bengals snap the streak? Yes, they do. They win and move on to the next round. All right, then you have our very next matchup between the 6-seeded New England Patriots and the 3-seeded Buffalo Bills. Starting out with the Patriots, you know, you're back. You know, 2020 was just a fluke due to COVID opt-outs, having Cam Newton as your quarterback and having what the hell that receiving core was. But anyways, Mac Jones is the quarterback now. To be honest, I think he had a decent season, 3,801 yards, although I do definitely think that he was a product of the Belichick system, 22 touchdowns to 13 picks. Where it's really at is the rush game, as you are the 8th-ranked rush team with guys like Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, and Brandon Bolden. Great three-headed monster. The receiving core is decent as well. Guys like Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, but it's really in the tight end duo with Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. But, of course, the main highlight of you guys is the defense. You know, the big breakout this year was Matt Judon. It was an excellent signing. You also got guys like Dante Hightower, Devin McCourty, J.C. Jackson, Jalen Mills. So it's a very strong defense. Sure, they don't do that well against the rush, but they do a great job against the pass. And then the Buffalo Bills, once again, a great season. Definitely a bit of a disappointment from last year, but still, you guys did a really good job. Josh Allen threw for 4,407 yards, 36 touchdowns to 15 picks. I definitely do see some concerns about the rushing game. You know, Devin Singletary was the lead rusher with 870 yards. He did break out late in the season, so if he can stay like that for the rest of the playoffs, I think you guys got a great shot at winning. Then you also got guys, Josh Allen was your second leading rusher with 763 yards, followed by Zach Moss and Matt Breida. But really, it's in the receiving core. Now, I know everyone's going to give credit to the four big receivers, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders, Dawson Knox. But I think people really forget a lot about the little guys like Gabriel Davis, Isaiah McKenzie. Those guys do a great job at carrying their own weight. They are great receivers. Don't sleep on them. And then, of course, you got that strong defense, Tremaine Edmonds. It's really in the secondary. You got the best secondary of the league, Jordan Poyer, Taron Johnson, Micah Hyde, Levi Wallace. Now, you are without Tre'Davious White for the playoffs, so I definitely think that's going to be a massive problem. You don't do that well against the rush, but it's better than what the Patriots have. So, honestly, I really think this matchup is going to come down to who's the better quarterback, because I think it's going to be a defensive battle. And I did talk to one of my friends who is a Bills fan, and he says weather's going to be one of the biggest key factors to the Bills in the playoffs, because the weather in Buffalo is just completely unpredictable. As we saw the first game against New England, with that wind, that team's going to go nowhere, but give me the Bills in this one. Going to take down the evil empire. And now you have our very first NFC wildcard matchup, a rematch of the 2002 NFC Championship game between the 7-seeded Philadelphia Eagles and the 2-seeded Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, starting out with the Philadelphia Eagles, once again, you guys were also a massive shock. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts. A decent quarterback, threw for 3,144 yards, 16 touchdowns, 9 picks. I am really concerned about the pass game, but where you guys have it? You guys have it in the run game. Jalen Hurts ran for 784 yards, Miles Sanders 754, Jordan Howard 406, Boston Scott 337. You guys were ranked as the #1 rushing offense in the league, so that is definitely going to be a big asset, especially later in the season. We saw you guys switch to more of a ground and pound attack, which definitely helped you make that push for the playoffs. But in terms of receivers, there's really only two big guys, Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. Other than that, you got some other guys like Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor. Just noted Jalen Reagor. The defense is also pretty solid. You guys have done a great job at shutting down the run this year. You guys have actually had a pretty solid defense, and I'm actually really impressed with that. And then on to the reigning Super Bowl champion in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady, age 44. Age is just a number. He threw for 5,316 yards, 43 touchdowns to 12 picks. I am definitely, one of my biggest concerns, though, is injuries and, weapons on offense, because Leonard Fournette, he's out for the season, so you got to be relying on Ronald Jones and Keyshawn Vaughn to carry that run game, and your big receiver is just going to be Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski. You got no Chris Godwin, he's out for the season. Antonio Brown just rage quit. So now, if guys like Scotty Miller, Cyril Grayson, and Tyler Johnson, if they can step up, that's going to definitely make the road to the Super Bowl a lot easier for the Buccaneers. Once again, they still have one of the best front sevens in the league, excellent at stopping the run, although the secondary has been a massive liability this year. If you're going to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you got to beat them in the air, not the ground, just like the New Orleans Saints. And that's something I think that Philly's going to struggle with. Yes, they do have the best rushing offense in the league, but I don't think they can go up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if it's going to come down to quarterback, come on, the pass game, Tom Brady's going to destroy it, so give me the Buccaneers. And now you have our very next matchup, a rematch of the 1981 NFC Championship game between the 6-seeded San Francisco 49ers and the 3-seeded Dallas Cowboys. Of course, the 1981 NFC Championship game was made famous with Dwight Clark with the catch. 49ers will love that moment. Anyway, starting out with the Niners, definitely an interesting season. I did see you making the playoffs, and I'm pretty impressed with how you did it. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's really going to be the deciding factor on how far the 49ers go. He threw for 3,810 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 12 picks. He is dealing with a torn finger ligament, so is that going to really affect him in the playoffs? Maybe. But it's really all in the rush game. Guys like Elijah Mitchell, Jeff Wilson Jr., but of course Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel just came out of nowhere this year. Sure, he had a strong 2019 rookie campaign, but was injured all of 2020 and just blew us out of the water. He was also your lead receiver, 1,405 yards and 6 touchdowns. But you also got other guys in the receiving game, guys like George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, who had a big breakout game that helped the 49ers make it to the playoffs. And I can't forget Kyle Juszczyk, the best fullback in the league, which is not really saying much. But also you guys have a really strong defense, was actually ranked as the 5th defense in yards per game, 6th against the pass, and 7th against the run. So I really do like that. And I also forgot to mention on the O-line, Trent Williams, easily one of the best offensive linemen in the league. So who knows? Maybe the Niners could go on a surprise playoff run. But anyways, on to the Dallas Cowboys. You know, you had a strong start to the season, but then you kind of quieted down. Sure, you won the NFC East, but that's not really saying much. Anyways, Dak Prescott was injured last year, of course, but he came out strong this year. 4,449 yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 picks. You guys have one of the best two-headed monsters in the league in running with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. You guys also have the three-headed monster at wide receiver. Well, it used to be three, now it's two since Michael Gallup is out for the rest of the season with CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. But Cedric Wilson, hopefully he can fill in nicely for the Dallas Cowboys. You also got Dalton Schultz, had an excellent breakout year for a tight end. Definitely something I could be concerned about is the defense, especially a guy like Trayvon Diggs. Like Trayvon Diggs, he's an excellent ball hawk, but just not a great corner. He led the league in picks, but he also led the league in yards allowed to wide receivers. So that's definitely going to be a massive flaw. But, you know, the defense, I wouldn't exactly rely on the Cowboys defense to carry them to a Super Bowl. Obviously, Dallas is the favorite in this one, but you know what? I'm going to say the 49ers pull off the upset here. And now you have our very next matchup, a rematch of the 2016 AFC divisional game between the 7-seeded Pittsburgh Steelers and the 2-seeded Kansas City Chiefs. Starting out with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't even know how the hell you made the playoffs. Like, you guys are lucky to even be in this situation. Ben Roethlisberger, he's on his last life, threw for 3,740 yards, 22 touchdowns, 10 picks. Honestly, he's the worst quarterback out of every single QB in the playoffs. I would not rely on him to take you to a Super Bowl. But in terms of rushing, you know, lead rusher was Najee Harris with 1,200 yards. But you definitely have a pretty solid receiving game. A big breakout year by Deontay Johnson with 1,161 yards and 8 touchdowns. You got Chase Claypool. Hopefully he can focus more on receiving than being a fucking clown. But you also got Pat Freiermuth, James Washington, Ray McLeod. So it's a decent receiving core, but they're ultimately held back as they have to adjust to Big Ben's game. In terms of defense, you know, you got some highlight that guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick and, of course, TJ Watt, who tied the regular season sack record, so that's excellent. And then the Kansas City Chiefs, definitely a bit of a disappointment you guys were this year. You know, you guys were hyped up like crazy, but, you know, you still did well. Patrick Mahomes threw for 4,839 yards, 37 touchdowns to 13 picks. But you also have a decent three-headed rushing monster yourself with Darrell Williams, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Derek Gore. You guys definitely did include a little bit more of a rush game this year, which was a bit of a shock. Now, it's really all in the receiving game. The two main guys, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, as well as other speedy guys like Mecole Hardman, Byron Pringle, Demarcus Robinson. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And the defense has kind of been two-sided this year. You know, the beginning of the season, the defense was horrific. But as the season has gone on, the defense has slowly been rising. So that's definitely going to be a major X factor into whether you guys can make a deep run or not. Because if you get into a shootout, I fear that your defense is just going to struggle to hang on. But honestly, in this match, Pittsburgh is such an underdog. Even Big Ben was saying, like, at this point, we're playing for fun. There's no way we could win. And, you know, with that vote of confidence, give me Kansas City. I was going to take them anyway, even without Big Ben's vote of confidence. And now you have our final wild card matchup between the 5-seeded Arizona Cardinals and the 4-seeded LA Rams. Starting out with the Cardinals, I am definitely shocked that you made the playoffs this year. I ultimately thought that Cliff Kingsbury was going to hold you back from the playoffs. Well, this was like a Cliff Kingsbury season. Super strong start, but then you sputter down the road. And a lot of people are saying Cliff Kingsbury could possibly get fired if they're a one and done. Anyways, the main highlight, Kyler Murray had an excellent season, threw for 3,787 yards, 24 touchdowns to 10 picks, but it's all in the rushing game. Guys like James Conner, Chase Edmonds, and Kyler Murray. James Conner was especially a breakout machine this year, especially he's a massive red zone threat. So if he's healthy, a lot of teams are going to have to be really worried about that. Anyways, lead receivers, you got Christian Kirk, AJ Green, Zach Ertz, Randall Moore. But you guys are going to be missing DeAndre Hopkins, which is a huge piece to be missing. But anyways, the defense is okay, I guess. You know, not exactly great against the rush. They did a great job against the pass, although in the last few games, Arizona has looked extremely shaky in the secondary, so that could be a major concern going into the playoffs. And then the LA Rams. First off, I want to say fuck you for ruining the Saints' chances that make the playoffs, even though we would have gotten our ass kicked if we made it. Anyways, this team is just going to live and die by Matthew Stafford. You know, this year he put up 4,886 yards, 41 touchdowns, but to 17 picks. That is just going to be a massive problem. lead rush this year was Sony Michel, followed by Darrell Henderson, and you guys are going to have Cam Akers back in the playoffs, which is just crazy considering that he tore his Achilles back in July. So it's crazy to think he's there. But where you guys are really at is Cooper Kupp. He had one of the best wide receiver seasons, 1,947 yards and 16 touchdowns. But you also got some decent receiving threats. Guys like Van Jefferson, Odell Beckham Jr., and Tyler Higbee. One of the big things I do notice about the defense, though, is that it's got a couple of stars, guys like Aaron Donald, Von Miller, and Jalen Ramsey. And other than that, that's pretty much it. The rest of their depth absolutely sucks. I mean, you guys ended up picking Eric Weddle. You took him out of retirement, and now he's playing safeties for you. If that doesn't scream desperation move, I don't know what does. But honestly, both these teams, a lot of people are seeing one of these guys is going to be a one and done, and it's going to be the Arizona Cardinals. Give me the Rams in this one. All right, so on to divisional weekend. So if all my predictions go according to plan, we'll have the 4-seeded LA Rams against the 2-seeded Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So starting off with the Rams, one thing I talked about earlier is how Matthew Stafford is the X factor on this team. Now, don't forget, X factor doesn't mean he's the best player on the team. It means he is the biggest variable. He's either going to make or break your situation. And the game against the 49ers was the perfect example of him this season. The first half, absolutely clicking. The offense was up. They were up 17-0, eventually 17-3 at halftime. And that was the good side of the Rams. And then the second half, when Matthew Stafford was terrible, it really held this team back. And we've seen that all the time this year. Now, they're going to be going up against the Buccaneers. So that is definitely a big concern. A couple other questions I will have is how strong will the rush game be? Will Cam Akers make a huge difference? Can OBJ recover from his first ever playoff game? Because his first ever playoff game was the 2016 wildcard game against the Green Bay Packers, and he choked big time. So that's definitely going to be a big question. And, of course, the defense. Like I said before, definitely have some star players, but other than that, their depth just absolutely sucks. And then the Buccaneers, they're definitely going to be the favorite going into this one. Tom Brady had the excellent age 44 season. But once again, injuries on the offense definitely could be a massive Achilles heel. Can guys like Ronald Jones, Keyshawn Vaughn step up? Mike Evans obviously is the wide receiver one for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but can Cyril Grayson maybe produce as a wide receiver two, or a guy like Scotty Miller? What happens if Gronk goes down? Maybe can Cameron Brate step up? And, the defense was just an absolute unit last year in the playoffs. So can the secondary possibly recover? I say for this matchup, this is going to be a bad Matthew Stafford game. It's going to be a bad one as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers run away to the NFC Championship game. And then you have our very next NFC divisional game between the 6-seeded San Francisco 49ers and the 1-seeded Green Bay Packers, a rematch of the 2019 NFC Championship game. If you don't remember that, Raheem Mostert just went beast mode on the Green Bay Packers, and it was just ugly. And it was the first of back-to-back NFC Championship losses for Aaron Rodgers. Anyway, starting off with the 49ers, something I talked about before, this team basically lives and dies by Jimmy Garoppolo. A lot like how the Rams are going to live and die by Matthew Stafford. But, I know a lot of people gave hate to Jimmy Garoppolo, but I don't think he's exactly the main problem on the team. I think he is an issue, but not the issue. And, if his injuries get serious enough, can Trey Lance possibly step up? Now, Trey Lance definitely showed some flashes this year, but I think he needs a little bit more time to develop. But still, I do love the rush game, and especially Deebo Samuel. But my big question is, what happens if Deebo Samuel gets shut down? Can George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk step up in his spot? I mean, Brandon Ayuk, he's the closest kind of guy to a Deebo Samuel. He's fast, great with yards after catch. Definitely it was great to see him break out late in the season. George Kittle still always as dangerous as ever. I still think he's the best tight end in the league. And, the defense, they've had some good shutdowns of other teams this year, but can they step up against an offensive juggernaut like the Green Bay Packers, who we'll start talking about? You're starting off with Aaron Rodgers, who is in the MVP conversations between him and Tom Brady, threw for 4,115 yards, 37 touchdowns to 4 picks. But you guys have an excellent two-headed rushing monster in A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. But it's really all the offense is in Devontae Adams. 1,553 yards and 11 touchdowns. And you do have some other receiving threats, guys like Alan Lazard, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Randall Cobb, and Mercedes Lewis, because you lost Robert Tonyan for the season, so that is definitely a huge loss. And, you got some guys in the defense, guys like Zadarius Smith, Jair Alexander, they're coming back, so that's going to be huge pieces to see return. But you did have a huge breakout star in Rasul Douglas. So if Rasul Douglas can play strong and Jair Alexander can return to form, I'd be terrified to face that secondary. Now, honestly, when I said this 49ers run was going to come down to Jimmy Garoppolo, I just think going up against the Green Bay Packers, it's just going to be too much of a challenge for them. So give me the Packers going on to the NFC Championship game. And now you have our very first AFC divisional matchup between the 4-seeded Cincinnati Bengals and the 1-seeded Tennessee Titans. Anyway, starting off with the Bengals, like I said before, a strong young core, one of the best young offenses in the league. I can't stress that enough. The breakout of Joe Burrow, strong rush game in Joe Mixon, an excellent three-headed monster, Boyd, Chase, and Higgins. This team is extremely exciting. Definitely one big question mark I have your way is definitely on the offensive line. It definitely took some improvements from last year. It's still not amazing, but can the offensive line do enough to protect Joe Burrow? And definitely the defense. You got the Tennessee Titans coming up. They have Derrick Henry coming back. Can you limit him, and can you stop the Titans? And then onto the Titans. I'm surprised that you were the number 1 seed this year. You dealt with a ton of injuries, yet somehow ended up number 1. But I have a huge concern, definitely with Ryan Tannehill at QB. Took a massive step down, threw for 3,734 yards, 21 touchdowns to 14 picks. Derrick Henry was still your lead rusher, even though he only played half the season, with 937 yards and 10 touchdowns. He is coming back for the playoffs now. One major concern I have for Derrick Henry is, 1, is he going to be the same running back that he once was? And 2, what is his workload going to look like? Are they going to abuse him like they have the whole season, or are they going to give him a limited workload? So that is definitely a big question mark. The receiving game is pretty decent. Guys like A.J. Brown, Julio Jones. A.J. Brown, when healthy, is a dog. And Julio Jones, he showed flashes. Other than that, there's not really many other guys in the receiving core. And the defense was definitely a big shock this year. You guys do an excellent job against the rush, but, the secondary is something I am very, very concerned about. And going up against a young, strong offense like the Cincinnati Bengals, who have done so well on the air this year, I'm really concerned about that. Honestly, I think this game is going to be a shootout, but the Cincinnati Bengals are going to pull off the upset and make it to the AFC Championship game. And now you have our very last AFC divisional game between the 3-seeded Buffalo Bills and the 2-seeded Kansas City Chiefs. Starting off with the Bills, like I said before, a bit of a disappointment from last year, but still a super strong performance. I really think this is all going to come down to Josh Allen. Not to be honest, every team, it's going to come down to their quarterback, but I definitely think Josh Allen is a special case because there's 2 sides to him, whether he relies on his arm or whether he relies on his feet. When he relies on his arm, I definitely think that's when he's at his best. He's making passes, he's accurate. However, when he has games when he is completely inaccurate, turning the ball over, he starts to rely on his feet, and that is definitely a big concern for the Buffalo Bills. If he goes to his feet, I really could struggle seeing you guys winning in a playoff game. A couple other questions, can the rush game stay as strong as it's been in the last couple of weeks? The receiving game, still as strong as ever, but can the little guys make as much of an impact as they had in the latter half of the season? And biggest question goes on to the defense, especially the secondary. Can they still play as strong against a pass-heavy team like the Kansas City Chiefs, despite missing their top corner in Tre'Davious White, arguably the best player on the team? And then the Kansas City Chiefs, like I said before, kind of a tale of 2 seasons. There was the Chiefs squad that was failing to live up to expectations, and then there was the Chiefs team that just went on an insane run to end the year. Now, obviously, can Patrick Mahomes still play as strong in the playoffs? Can he erase the demons that haunted him in Super Bowl 55? Is he still going to be haunted by that Bucs defense? Also with the rush game, can it stay as strong as it has in the last couple of games? And honestly, I think the biggest X factor to the Kansas City Chiefs offense is Tyreek Hill. Yes, he is arguably their best offensive player, but he's also the major X factor. Is I've seen that games where Tyreek Hill goes berserk is when the Kansas City Chiefs do best. However, when teams neutralize Tyreek Hill, it does not lead to success for the Chiefs. As you know, it takes that one deep shot to Tyreek Hill to completely change the game. And teams that neutralize him, sure, they'll take damage from Kelsey and other receiving threats, but none of those guys can make a dent as much as Tyreek Hill can. And of course, can the defense still live up to the hype? They, of course, struggled to start the season, but went on a hot streak to end the year. Now, of course, a big concern I have is if this game goes to a shootout. If it's a shootout, it's both secondaries, I think, are really gonna struggle with this, but I really think it's gonna come down to the better quarterback And sadly, I'm sorry, Bills fans, but Patrick Mahomes I'd take any day in this situation, so give me the Chiefs. And now you have our NFC Championship game between the 2-seeded Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the 1-seeded Green Bay Packers, a rematch of the 2020 NFC Championship game. And of course, it's going to be happening in Green Bay, happening in the tundra. Can the Buccaneers adjust to it? I mean, Tom Brady, he'll adjust to it because, of course, he played in New England. It's cold as hell down there, but not quite like the tundra. Anyways, like I've talked about before, Tom Brady is a major asset to this team. So is the offense and the defense, mainly the front seven. Now, liabilities going into this game are definitely going to be the depth in the receiving and the offense, and definitely the secondary dealing with all those injuries. So, keys to victory for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Can the small guys step up? That's like your Ronald Jones, Keyshawn Vaughn, Scotty Miller, Cyril Grayson, Brashad Perriman. Can those guys fill in the void? My answer is, they're not going to be quite like them, but Tom Brady can make it work with anyone. You saw the magic that he had against Scotty Miller in the NFC Championship game last year. He can make magic with these guys. So, if the small guys can step up, it could be an easy road for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then the Green Bay Packers. I know everyone's calling this the last dance, and if this was truly the last dance, you would lose in 3 straight NFC Championship games. Is that going to happen? Let's talk about it. Obviously, you got the MVP and Aaron Rodgers. Big assets are, of course, the rush game, the receiving game. Definitely the defense could be a bit of a liability. Obviously, in a lot of Aaron Rodgers' playoff losses, they're all just either shootouts or blowouts, as the defense just can't get anything done. Obviously, keys to victory here, honestly, establish a strong ground game. I know the Buccaneers are one of the best teams at stopping the rush in the NFL, but if Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon can continue playing as strong as they have this season, and the pass game can do what they need to do, this could be the year that Green Bay finally bucks the trend and makes the Super Bowl. And obviously, can you shut down the limited Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense? I say yes, Green Bay goes to the Super Bowl. And then you have our AFC Championship game between the 4-seeded Cincinnati Bengals and the 2-seeded Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the fact that I have the Bengals here is crazy. If they make the AFC Championship game, I just won't even believe it. If you told me that back in September, I would have just said, you have a time machine? Because I just would not believe you. But obviously, like I said, big asset, Joe Burrow and the offense, one of the best young cores in the league. Definitely a big asset. Definitely, I'd say a big liability is definitely that secondary. There have been a couple of shootouts that you guys have gotten into this season, and you have also had that secondary get embarrassed by some guys like Baker Mayfield, but of course Mike White. And consistency is something that is a major concern for you guys, because you guys have had some weeks where you play like you're the best team in the league, only to follow it up with just a humiliating loss. So consistency is definitely going to be a major factor in this playoff run. Obviously, key to victory, establish the offense. You're going up against the Chiefs. They don't do that well they don't do that well on defense. So if you can just establish an offense like you did against them in Week 17, it could be an easy road to the Super Bowl. And then on the Chiefs, like I said earlier this season, they really struggled to find their footing, but once they did, they were one of the hottest teams in football. Now, obviously, the asset is the offense, whether it's Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, the three-headed monster in Darrell Williams, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Derek Carr. Honestly, the three-headed monster is the weakest part of this team, but Andy Reid has been incorporating them more in the season, and it's turned some decent results. And of course, Travis Kelce. Definitely, of course, the big concern is that defense. Obviously struggled to start the season, but got better as time went along. So obviously, key to victories, you got to stay strong on defense. If your defense, once again, if this goes to a shootout, I just do not trust your defense. And establish a pass game. See if you can make Tyreek Hill as effective as possible. Because like I said earlier, if Tyreek Hill gets neutralized, this Chiefs offense goes nowhere. So who's going to win this game? I'm going to say that the Chiefs get revenge. Now, Bengals fans, any of you watching, I would say if you lose the AFC Championship game, don't be disappointed unless you choke it away, because this was an excellent season. The fact that you even made it to this point is a miracle, so take the win. But, Chiefs pull out on top. And now we get to the Super Bowl 56, which is going to be a rematch of the very first Super Bowl between the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs, the 1 seed from the NFC and the 2 seed from the AFC. So, let's get into strength versus weakness. So, obviously, I'd say quarterbacks in this game, it's going to be pretty equal. Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, they're 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league. And then we get to the rush game. I got to give the upper hand to the Green Bay Packers. You know, A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones are a much better 1-2 punch than Darrell Williams, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Derek Gore. And then to the wide receivers, I'm going to give the edge to Kansas City here because, you know, they got Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and then everyone else is kind of just middle of the road. And then the Green Bay Packers, it's Devontae Adams, and then everyone else is just pretty much middle of the road. And then on the defense, I'm going to give the edge to the Green Bay Packers because they've been missing a couple of key pieces throughout the whole season, yet they've still managed to stay strong and win all the games they've won. And the Kansas City Chiefs, yeah, they had a horrible start, but definitely a decent finish. Now, something that both these teams have in common on defense is that they both take away the ball a lot. And that is going to be a huge factor. But anyways, key to victories, obviously for both teams, establish the offense, especially with Green Bay. Establish that ground game. Don't be afraid to have Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon carry some of the load. Obviously, if Adams and Rodgers get their connection against that KC defense, it's over. Like, they're just going to score them. Now, for the Chiefs, try to see if you can force a Green Bay turnover. Now, Green Bay, they do not turn the ball over because Aaron Rodgers just does not throw picks. Now, if you can force an Aaron Rodgers turnover, that's going to greatly increase the odds in your favor. And, of course, if the Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes connection, that has to be on point. If that gets neutralized, this team goes nowhere. Now, honestly, like I said, I think this game's going to be a shootout. But in the end, I think Green Bay is the more well-rounded team. They're going to be Super Bowl 56 champions. Aaron Rodgers is your Super Bowl MVP. And does he stay around? I actually don't know. On to the outro. And that is going to wrap up my video for today. Thank you guys all so much for watching. It is amazing that we just completed postseason predictions. There's one more prediction video coming up, and that is Super Bowl prop bet predictions. Always something that I'm excited to make. If you like this video, drop a like. If you want to see my last video, which was my Saints and Falcons recap, click right over here. I was pretty salty filming that. Subscribe by clicking over here or down below. Comment down below who you have winning the Super Bowl. Who do you think could make the biggest surprise one? And who do you think is the most overrated team to make the playoffs? Follow me on all my social medias, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok at Brendan Suter. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Who Dat Nation. Wishing we were in the playoffs.